Canada did not fall by accident. It was infiltrated. While Canadians were told to celebrate diversity and growth, a silent economic takeover was already underway, built through foreign student pipelines, fake colleges, rigged work permit systems, and political partnerships designed to flood the country with cheap labor. The public was never consulted. Parliament never debated it honestly. The media covered it up, and corporations got rich while Canadians paid the price. This is not immigration. This is economic capture, and the truth has been buried until now. Chapter 1. The quiet infiltration begins. The takeover of Canada did not begin with guns or invasion. It began with policy. In 2014, Canada quietly opened its doors to a new immigration strategy, one that shifted away from skilled immigration and toward a system built on temporary foreign workers and international students. This created a loop of dependency that foreign recruitment networks quickly exploited. The first major surge came from India, particularly from Punjab, Haryana, and Gujarat, where aggressive immigration agents began selling Canada as a product. Between 2015 and 2023, the number of Indian international students in Canada exploded from 38,000 to over 410,000, representing 42% of all foreign students in the country. This wasn't natural growth. It was engineered by a pipeline of immigration consultants, fake recruitment agencies, and diploma mill colleges. These colleges opened in Brampton, Mississauga, Scarborough, Surrey, and Winnipeg, not to educate, but to launder student visas into work permits. Canada became a business opportunity, not a destination of education. International students were promised permanent residency. Recruiters in India charged up to $35,000 per student just to arrange admission into a private for-profit college in Canada. Colleges with no academic credibility, but full legal approval from the federal government and provincial ministries. Out of sight from Canadians, an entire industry formed, the immigration pipeline economy. It connected visa brokers in India, college owners in Canada, immigration lawyers, housing speculators, and corporate labor recruiters. Every link in this chain made money. The only people who lost were Canadian workers, who were pushed out of their own job market, and foreign students who arrived as debt slaves trapped in low-wage jobs. This was phase 1 of the takeover. Population flooding, not to build the country, but to reshape it economically and politically. And it worked, because it was never presented as a threat. It was sold as diversity. But Canadians were not told the truth. Behind the scenes, India was not immigrating to Canada. India was relocating into Canada. This was not immigration. This was positioning. Step 1 was simple: get boots on the ground. The next phase would change the job market forever. Chapter 2. The job market. Hijack. Once the international student flood began, the next phase activated. Economic takeover through labor domination. By 2018, more than 70% of Indian students in Canada were already working illegally while studying, funneled into underground employment networks in trucking, warehouses, construction, retail, security, telecom call centers, rideshare services, and hospitality. These networks were controlled by Indian-owned labor recruiters who quickly took over entry-level industries. Canada's federal labor laws allowed this to happen because they protect employers, not workers. Companies like Amazon, Walmart, Loblaws, Tim Hortons, Canadian Tire, Rogers, and major logistics firms quietly benefited by replacing Canadians with cheaper foreign labor who would never complain out of fear of deportation. Between 2015 and 2023, Canadian-born youth unemployment doubled. Underemployment rose above 29% in major cities. Employers removed experience requirements to favor foreign workers ready to accept any wage. Cash job networks replaced legal hiring. Wage theft became systematic. Indian recruiters established labor monopolies. Want a job in Toronto or Brampton? Go through an Indian job agent first. Want warehouse work? Pay a cut of your paycheck to the middleman. Want trucking? Pay $15,000 for a fake license and training fraud package. A hidden economy formed outside Canadian control. Canadian citizens were pushed out of their own workforce because they could not compete with people who were legally allowed to be exploited. Canadian wages were pushed down, benefits disappeared. Collective bargaining died, and all major corporations pretended not to know why labor suddenly got cheaper. This was not immigration. This was economic occupation. The critical sectors needed to control a country. Transportation, logistics, food supply, and small business hiring were now heavily run by Indian hiring networks. And anyone who questioned it was labeled racist, anti-immigrant, or far-right, effectively silencing all opposition. The job market did not collapse, it was hijacked. Chapter 3. The college and visa scam industry. With the job market secured, the next phase of takeover expanded through education fraud. The Canadian immigration system allowed private career colleges to issue study permits, the easiest path to enter Canada legally. These colleges did not exist for education. They existed to sell visas. By 2022, over 400,000 international students were enrolled in low-quality private colleges in Canada, most of them from India. These institutions had no science labs, no research, no credible degrees. Some didn't even have permanent classrooms. Yet they were legally authorized by provincial governments to operate. Colleges like those in Brampton, Mississauga, Scarborough, Surrey, and Winnipeg turned strip malls into campuses. These were not schools. They were immigration storefronts. Their real customers were not students. Their real partners were visa agents in India, who were paid kickbacks up to $4,000 per student. Agents in Punjab and Haryana told families, "You don't need good grades, we can get you in. Canada guarantees permanent residency if you go through college. Even if you fail, you still get a work permit. Pay now, land in Canada in 90 days. Fake IELTS scores were arranged. Admission letters were forged. Bank statements were faked. College acceptance seats were auctioned. The Indian recruitment industry made over $12 billion per year, pulling students into Canada through this system. Canada did nothing to stop it because it needed the cash. Foreign students paid tuition. They paid rent. They worked low-wage jobs. They paid taxes. They bought phones. They took loans. They bought used cars. They fed the system. They were never meant to get permanent residency. They were meant to be permanent economic fuel. Meanwhile, Canadian students were pushed out of their own universities due to rising tuition costs. Why? Because schools could make 3x more money from foreign students than locals. Education turned into an international business, not a public service. Nobody voted for this system. It was never announced publicly. It was engineered by immigration lawyers, education consultants, recruiters, and banks who profited from lifetime debt. This scam was not a policy failure. It was policy disguised as education. Chapter 4. Brampton, the prototype city of the takeover. The first visible sign of the Indian takeover was not in Ottawa or Toronto. It was Brampton. What happened in Brampton became the blueprint for how to change a Canadian city without firing a single shot. Between 2015 and 2023, Brampton's population exploded by over 200,000 people, and the majority came from India through student visas and work permits. Within 8 years, city infrastructure collapsed. Hospitals hit emergency wait times of 22 hours. Housing density doubled. Illegal housing units surged past 40,000. Basement ghettos replaced family neighborhoods. Auto insurance fraud became the highest in Canada. Organized crime grew under student gangs. Trucking scams and license fraud became systemic. Streets, schools, and services were overloaded beyond capacity. This wasn't migration. This was a population jam. Brampton was never built to absorb hundreds of thousands of temporary workers and student visa entrants in such a short time, but it was done intentionally. Why? Because Brampton became the control hub, a recruitment and supply city for staffing Indian workers into Ontario and beyond. From Brampton, Indian-owned labour brokers supplied warehouse crews to Peel and York region, security guards across GTA, plumbers, electricians, HVAC, through fake trade schools, transport workers to Ontario logistics firms, Uber, Lyft, Skip the Dishes, Amazon flex drivers across southern Ontario. At the same time, Brampton became politically captured. Voting blocs were formed. Independent candidates were crushed. Indian political organizations began installing candidates from within their networks. The turning point came when political control merged with recruitment control. Local policies shifted to protect private colleges. Enforcement disappeared against illegal rentals. Crackdowns on immigration fraud stopped. Criticism of Indian influence was banned as hate speech. Brampton went from being a Canadian city to a testing ground for foreign demographic and economic occupation. The model worked so well, it was cloned and exported to Surrey, British Columbia, Northeast Calgary, Winnipeg, North Scarborough, Etobicoke, North Mississauga, East Edmonton, Mill Woods. The strategy was clear: establish population dominance, gain economic dominance, then political dominance. And it succeeded. Chapter 5. The Organized Housing Takeover. Once the foreign labor system was in motion, the next strategic target became Canadian housing. Housing was not a crisis. It was engineered to become one. The Indian network moved aggressively into speculative real estate, using international student families as rental fuel to finance mass property acquisition. The formula was simple: buy a detached home with 5% down using pooled money from India. Convert the house into illegal multi-unit rentals. Pack 10 to 22 foreign students per house, paying £500, $750 each. Hide rental income as cash payments. Use fake income claims to qualify for more mortgages. Repeat and expand. This became known as the Brampton housing model, a system of basement bunkhouses and cash rental empires. It spread faster than law enforcement could react. Police stopped responding. City bureau officers stopped inspecting. Politicians ignored it because the network already had influence. By 2023, over 32% of Brampton homes had illegal rentals. Housing prices increased 180% in 6 years. Canadian first-time buyers were blocked out. Entire neighborhoods were converted to rental dorms. Property tax fraud became rampant. Mortgage fraud expanded using fake Canadian employment letters. Punjabi real estate cartels controlled large parts of the market. Toronto followed next. Then Calgary, Surrey and Winnipeg. Homes were no longer bought to live in. They were bought to extract money from a constant flow of international students and visa workers, exactly as designed. Who financed this? Canadian banks, who knowingly approved fake mortgage applications created by accountants inside the Indian business community. Scotiabank, RBC and CIBC issued loans backed by fraudulent income statements at industrial scale. They looked the other way because mortgage debt is profitable. Housing did not collapse because Canada lacked houses. Housing collapsed because organized financial takeover converted shelter into wealth extraction, while immigration pressure created guaranteed endless renters. Canadians didn't lose housing. Housing was taken from them. Chapter 6. The Corporate Alliance. Cheap labor over Canadians. The takeover could not have succeeded without corporate collaboration. Canadian employers, large and small, betrayed their own workers in exchange for access to cheap, compliant labor from India. This was not an accident. It was corporate strategy. Between 2016 and 2023, Over 1.2 million jobs were filled by temporary foreign workers, TFWs, and postgraduate work permit holders, PGWPs, instead of Canadians' LMIA-based hiring fraud. Labor market impact assessment became a $2 billion black market industry. Companies used foreign staffing agencies run by Indian hiring networks across Ontario, Alberta, and BC. Wage depression intentionally targeted trucking, warehousing, construction, IT consulting, and healthcare support sectors. Corporations discovered something. Hiring Canadians comes with legal obligations. Hiring desperate foreign labor does not. Canadians demand fair wages. TFWs accept less. Canadians report safety violations. Foreign workers cannot risk deportation. Canadians file grievances. Foreign workers pay bribes to keep jobs. Canadians expect standards. Foreign labor will tolerate abuse. Major companies now prefer Indian recruitment pipelines because they come with labor control, the power to threaten immigration status as a tool of obedience. What fueled this? The rise of Indian-owned staffing companies in Canada. They connected employers directly to Indian workers. They replaced HR departments. They controlled who gets hired. They blacklisted Canadians from jobs in their own cities. Employers now openly tell Canadians, "We're not hiring locally anymore. You must go through an agent." Canada has become a contract labor state, where private foreign hiring networks control entire job sectors. This is not immigration. This is economic capture. The most disturbing part: work permit fraud is now a recruitment tool. Thousands of Indians bought fake job offers through LMIA brokers, paying between $25,000 and $90,000 for construction, trucking, and farm jobs. These jobs are often fake, created just to enter Canada. This system enriches Indian labor brokers, Canadian employers, immigration lawyers, tax-evading staffing agencies, and bankers who lend to all of them. This was never about filling labor shortages. This was about replacing Canadians. Chapter 7. Fraud as a System. How the Takeover was Protected. Canada pretends to have immigration rules. In reality, the rules are only for Canadians. The foreign pipeline operates through fraud protection, and it has 3 layers. Layer 1. Visa fraud. Visa mills in India forge bank statements, fake acceptance letters, and ghost college records to push people through the student visa stream. When 700 Indian students were caught with fake admission letters in 2023, Canada did not deport them. Instead, officials blamed corrupt agents and let students stay, legalizing fraud. Layer 2. Work permit fraud. Indian recruitment cartels sell fake LMIA job offers for prices between $25,000 and $90,000, depending on job category. These offers are created by fake construction companies and shell farms in Ontario, Manitoba, and Alberta. IRCC is aware of the fraud network but refuses to prosecute it because the fake jobs still supply real workers, fueling the cheap labor economy. Layer 3. Academic fraud. The system is protected by fraud-friendly private colleges that depend on foreign students. These colleges never fail anyone. Everybody passes to keep visa status active. Some colleges have attendance fraud, where students never show up but still receive passing grades. This is not education. It is immigration laundering. Fraud didn't enter Canada by mistake. It was invited. Immigration agents, accountants, real estate brokers, and college owners built a profitable fraud ecosystem connected to India. Every year, over $14 billion flows from India into Canada through illegal channels. Black money enters housing via under-the-table mortgage deals. Recruitment fraud feeds corporations fake workers. Colleges profit from illegal enrollment. Immigration lawyers make millions cleaning up fake cases. The Canadian government knows, but it does nothing because the fraud supports the economy. The Indian takeover is not happening despite Canadian approval. It is happening because of it. Fraud has become national policy because everyone at the top gets paid. Chapter 8. Political capture and institutional silence. The economic and population shifts happening across Canada did not go unnoticed by political leaders, but they were deliberately ignored. Instead of acknowledging the growing strain on jobs, housing, healthcare, wages, and infrastructure, politicians across party lines repeated a single message: immigration is good for the economy. But they refused to answer the real question: good for whose economy? The truth is, political silence was not accidental, it was strategic. Multiple political campaigns across Canada learned that immigration could be used for voting power. In high-density immigration ridings like Brampton, Mississauga, Scarborough, Surrey, Winnipeg North, and Calgary Northeast, political influence became transactional. Instead of debating policy, campaigns focused on forming vote blocks through aligned community leaders and business associations. These blocks shaped nominations, endorsements, and even candidate selection. Immigration policy was no longer about long-term national interest. It shifted into a tool for short-term political gain. When federal immigration levels surged from 260,000 per year to over 1.2 million temporary residents annually, no major party opposed it. The reason? All parties benefited from donations, from recruitment ties, and from growing influence in key voter regions. Meanwhile, institutions that should have been neutral became silent. Statistics. Canada stopped reporting citizen versus non-citizen employment impact in key labor sectors. Provincial governments avoided enforcement against illegal housing or licensing fraud to protect voter stability. Colleges and universities lobbied to expand study permits for revenue. Media outlets received federal subsidies and avoided investigative reporting that might inflame immigration concerns. Anyone who questioned the consequences faced instant censorship labels: racist, anti-immigrant, far-right, conspiracy theorist, extremist. These labels were not created to stop hate. They were designed to stop discussion, to block accountability, to protect economic interests. Public debate was shut down and policy capture was complete. This was the turning point. The system stopped working for Canadians and started managing them. Chapter 9. Mark Carney and the financial engine behind population policy. To understand how Canada's economic direction changed so dramatically and why mass temporary migration was allowed to reshape the job market, we must examine who benefits at the very top layer of the system: the financial class. One of the most influential figures in this shift is Mark Carney. This is not a personal attack. This is a factual examination of his public economic role. Carney is a former governor of the Bank of Canada, later governor of the Bank of England, and a key architect in global financial policy through organizations like the Bank for International Settlements, BIS, and the World Economic Forum, WF. Carney has repeatedly stated in global policy forums that economic growth requires population growth, specifically through immigration-driven labor expansion and housing sector credit growth. Under this framework, people are treated as economic units that generate debt, consumption, and tax flow, fuel for a banking-based economy. Canada's banks, real estate lenders, and pension funds depend on rising population to keep profits flowing. Without population growth, mortgages decline, debt slows, and profit weakens. Immigration policy didn't expand because Canada lacked workers. It expanded because the financial system required endless new borrowers. Under this economic model, people are brought in to rent or borrow. Borrowing drives mortgages, car loans, and credit cards. More people yield higher housing demand, higher prices. But higher prices yield bigger mortgage profits. Bigger mortgages equals more interest payments to banks. Mark Carney has openly endorsed financial immigration growth strategies and population expansion because they benefit financial markets. Meanwhile, everyday Canadians are now trapped in record household debt, the highest in the G7. Why? Because the system is not built for affordability, it is built for bank profit continuity. This is why no major political leader, federal or provincial, will discuss reducing immigration levels or restructuring the system. Because Canada's economy is now structurally dependent on constant human intake, not as citizens, but as economic fuel. This is why population policy will not change. Because it is not being run by social needs, it is being run by financial design. If you're still here, it means you care about truth. Most people will ignore what is happening, but silence is how a country gets taken from its own people. If you believe Canadians deserve honesty, transparency, and a future that isn't controlled by hidden economic agendas, then don't stop here. Subscribe to this channel right now. Turn on all notifications so you never miss what comes next. Share this video, because the truth only has power if people hear it. Drop a comment below and tell me, should Canada reform its immigration and labor system, yes or no, and why? I'm reading every single one. This is just the beginning. In the next episode, we expose how recruitment networks, corporate lobbying, and financial power groups shaped Canada's future without a single vote from the people. If you're ready to go deeper into the truth they're still hiding, I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp, stay aware, stay free,